If you're a leader, you're eventually going to face a challenge that's as old as time itself, the threat of betrayal from within. It's really not a matter of if, but when. And understanding this reality, well, that's one of the most crucial tests for anyone carrying a big vision. So how do you prepare for something like that? Let's dive into some principles that can help protect what you're building.
This statement just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's a really difficult leadership truth. The attacks that cause the most pain, and honestly, the most damage, they don't come from your critics out there. They come from people who once shared your table, people who walked with you, and that's what makes this such a profound and frankly painful challenge to navigate.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the nature of the inner circle itself. Then, we'll dig into how to spot the warning signs of a hidden fracture. After that, we'll confront the real price of leadership, and finally, we'll uncover the principles for building a vision that can actually survive it all.
All right, every great vision starts right here, in the inner circle. It's that place of trust, of collaboration, of shared passion. But here's the paradox. It's also the place where we are the most vulnerable as leaders.
And this brings us to what we're calling the Judas Paradox. It's a paradox because the very closeness that should be a shield can become the source of the biggest threat. The story of Judas wasn't about some outside enemy. It was about a trusted treasurer, a disciple, someone who was supposed to be a friend. This right here, this is a hard truth for leaders to swallow. It's so easy to confuse being physically close with being aligned in heart and mind. We just assume that the people who have access to our strategy, to our thoughts, are automatically loyal to our values. But this principle, it forces us to look deeper, way beyond just who's in the room.
You see, every great vision acts like a magnet, and it pulls in two very different kinds of people. You've got the builders. They're the ones committed to the mission itself. They stay late because they believe in the why. But then you have the opportunists. They're drawn to the platform, the perks, the benefits that surround the mission. They might sound just as passionate, but their loyalty, it's to the opportunity, not the purpose. And a leader's wisdom is constantly being tested in telling the two apart.
So that leads us to a really crucial question. How do you spot the fracture before the whole thing breaks? See, internal betrayal is almost never a sudden event. It's more like a slow erosion of character, and there are patterns a wise leader can absolutely learn to recognize.
These 3 warning signs right here, think of them as your diagnostic tool. First, you'll see a shift in motives. When someone's language changes from we to me, the foundation is cracked. Then comes the hidden compromise. Those small ethical shortcuts that happen in private long before they ever show up in public. And finally, secret alliances begin to form, creating this sort of shadow government that quietly works against the vision.
This is just such a powerful psychological insight. Think about it. Judas criticized the use of expensive perfume. He sounded so spiritual, so concerned for the poor, but his real motive was corrupt. It's an age-old form of virtue signaling that can mask some really deep-seated issues. The challenge for a leader is to develop the discernment to see past the performance and get to the real motive.
Okay, now we're at the emotional heart of this whole thing. Betrayal it's deeply, deeply painful. But we have to learn to reframe it, not just as a personal wound, but as an inevitable, if tragic, cost of leading other human beings.
And this is the crucial point. If Jesus Christ, the perfect model of leadership, was betrayed by someone he personally poured into and mentored, then betrayal is not always a reflection of your failure as a leader. Sometimes it is simply part of the journey. And that can be a really difficult, but ultimately a very liberating realization. The reason this wound cuts so deep is right here. It's not an attack from a stranger. It's from someone who saw it all, the struggles, the victories. They walked with you for years. They witnessed the miracles. They were trusted with real responsibility. That shared history, that's what makes the betrayal feel like such a fundamental violation of trust.
Acknowledging the pain is necessary, but we can't stay there. So this final section is all about hope and strategy. How do you build an organization that's resilient enough to withstand this kind of internal shockwave?
Wise leaders learn to move from relying on just personal relationships to building strong systems of accountability. It means no single person is the linchpin. Second, they prioritize character way above charisma or even competence. You can teach a skill, but trustworthiness is foundational. And third, they learn to watch long-term patterns because consistency reveals the heart way more than a few brilliant short-term performances.
Let's just pause on this for a second, because it is the central architectural principle for a resilient organization. You can hire the most competent, skilled people in the world, but if they lack character,
You have basically built a beautiful structure with no firewall. Character, that's the immune system of your vision.
This brings us to a really powerful and realistic mindset. Look, you might not be able to prevent every Judas moment. The goal isn't to build a fortress of suspicion and paranoia. The goal is to build a mission that is so strong, so systemically sound, that no single individual's failure can bring the whole thing crashing down.
And ultimately, the story of Judas is tragic, of course, but it didn't stop the mission. In fact, after the ultimate betrayal, the vision exploded across the world. And this reveals the final, hopeful truth. Betrayal may wound the leader, but it cannot kill a vision that is rooted in a deep, God-ordained purpose.
So we'll end with this question. And it's not meant as an accusation, but really as an invitation. It's a call for every one of us who leads to reflect, to build with wisdom, and to anchor our hope not in the perfection of our people, but in the power and resilience of our purpose.